Hi, Bill. Well, not yet for Australia. We can change that though. I'm open. So Australia, call me.
I'm loving it. I'm loving it. We do have those magazines here as well, fitness and muscle, and they're common. So we understand where they are and where you sort of fit into the whole fitness world. Um, I'm curious, were you always a fitness freak?
No. No, I've been dancing since I was 3, so I definitely have been active and I've used my body. But I would say I did not get into the gym until I was in college. It was probably sophomore year. Although I did graduate in 3 years, so I was only there for 3 years. So whatever that middle year now would be called, whether that be my sophomore or my junior. And it was because I didn't want to work retail anymore. And a friend in retail said, let's go get a job at the gym. Now, mind you, my boyfriend at the time was a gymnast. So he was really well defined and built and very balanced musculature all over his body. And I was in musical theater school and I was dancing, had been dancing my whole life. So I had strong muscular quads and calves, but I had a scrawny, skinny little upper body, like I looked like a pear. And I knew, not that I cared that much about building muscle, so to speak. It was really about looking more balanced and feeling stronger. I mean, obviously, I wasn't doing anything with my upper body,
Mm.
but I was yet doing all this with my legs, tapping and ballet and jazz and all that good stuff. So that's really when it started. I was probably 19, maybe 19 or 20. Although
Okay.
it was like I took off running very quickly once I got in there and got certified, and then became director of education for New York Sports Club when I was 21. So like it wasn't, I didn't waste any time getting into the fitness industry.
So you look very youthful, actually. How long have you actually now been in that industry?
20 years. About 20 years.
Yeah.
I've been in California for 17 in June, and I started personal training maybe 2 years, 2.5 years before I got here in New York. Is that right? 97. I got my first certification, I believe, in 1996. So it's been a little over 20 years, or almost 20 years.
Yeah. Somebody that's been in an industry for such a long time would have a lot of broad knowledge, plus a lot of really, narrow and focused points of view about how to go about doing things. How different is what you're doing today, 20 odd years later, as opposed to what you were doing when you were 19, when it was let's do everything and let's do as much as we can. Have you found yourself evolving and changing the way that you go about fitness?
It's a great question. And I'd love to ask that of actually a lot of male fitness trainers for the reason that, like a sport, I could see how you would think the fitness industry is like a sport. Like you go into it in one way, kind of full on, and you take what you know. But to me, first of all, I'm not that person. I'm the person who is very inquisitive and inquires and wants to learn what I'm doing. In fact, I credit a lot of my passion to one of the trainers that I used to work with back in, 1996 when I first got certified. You can get certified as a personal trainer without any science background. You can literally take a weekend course, sometimes online, never step foot in a gym and become a certified personal trainer. Now, I didn't do that. I did a course, but the course that I took taught me more about how not to get sued and more like the legal structures of business. And it was like a health class, like a little bit about a lot of things. All right, so now I'm certified and I walk into a gym and I see all this equipment. Now what? You didn't teach me how to use the equipment. So I then started to ask questions, and I was trained by the manager on staff at the time 20 years ago, and I don't even remember what her background was, if it was physical therapy but she taught me what the machines did. Maybe I don't even, again, that's really funny. I don't have no idea what she taught me in terms of like, was it, I can't tell now 20 years later, like, was it any good? I have no idea. I know from a reference. So I remember that she did teach me, but then I put some clients on, and I remember thinking, so here's the biggest change. When you first start out and you really don't have a lot of education, and the industry is that way, you don't have to have a degree to become a personal trainer. And some people that have degrees, even in something similar from where I sit right now, don't know a lot of the things that I think they should know. So it's in terms of the sciences that are involved, it depends on who's teaching the course. So I put a bunch of ladies on like a leg sled, I remember. And one of the physical therapist client trainers, he's a trainer and he was studying to be a physical therapist. He approached me and he's like, JJ, and he was real discreet about it. And he's like, come here. And he took me into the office and he was like, so why did you put those ladies or that lady on that machine? Did you ask, does she have any hip issues? And he started to ask me questions, and and it was almost like, oh my God, I've been found out. Someone found me out, and I don't know what I'm doing in every area. Oh my God, what's going to happen next? And he put me on a machine. He said, let me ask you what muscles are being worked here and what actions are happening. And honestly, I guessed, and I guessed right, but I knew I guessed. So I was like, okay, tell me help me. How do I get more information? And that's when he turned me on to my very first certification, which was second certification. I was certified at that point. That one was bogus. But the second one, which was NASM, National Academy of Sports Medicine, at that time, run by different people than it is now. That time, I mean, people who were in physical therapy school weren't passing the beginner course. So that's the course that I went through. And it blew me open in terms of my mind, in terms of science, because growing up I never thought I really understood science, because I'm the theater student, I'm the communicator, I'm the English person. I was taking poetry and creative writing courses, and I dropped all my science and math in my senior year of high school because it bored me and I didn't like it because it was abstract and it didn't mean anything to me. But here now I'm working with the body, and I'm seeing science in my body, and it's so clear and it's so easy, and I'm good at it. And now all of a sudden I'm smart. And I was like, wow, like my world just opened up. And so that little bit of science information really uncovered for me how much gym science that there is, and how many trainers had no clue about the science of the body, and how most people that are working out have no clue about what they're doing in the gym. Once I started to really start to learn, it opened my eyes so much that how I'm different now is back then it was a toe-to-toe ego thing. It was, I wanted to show you how smart I was by what I knew, because I knew you didn't know it. Like the big guys with their weight belts, like I wanted to just go right and go rah, like just meet them testosterone wise right in their face and be like, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're doing. Okay, like seriously. So now of course that's not the right approach, and that was my own insecurities driving that, right? Like I learned one thing, and I could prove that they were wrong, and I wanted to like capitalize on that. So I don't do that anymore. I'm much calmer about how I deliver my science, and I don't need to make anybody wrong for it. But through the years, I just keep learning more and more. And so back to the question of like, how am I different too? When I first started learning, one of my instructors in NASM was an ex-Mr. Olympian, and he got up in the front of the room. Now, at the time I was in my early 20s, and he said, I have 11 injuries. Don't do what I did. And I was like, okay, that's all I needed to hear. I'm like, I won't. Okay, you're telling me don't do stupid shit in the gym. So I won't. And that was all I needed to hear. And I took it very seriously, because I saw that you can train and get injured, or you can train and preserve your body. And the difference was science. You have to understand the sciences involved. And, excuse me, and not many people do, because if you have a good body, you genetically look good, or you're an athlete, you can get away with a lot of stuff. Nobody questions you. Yeah. And the average client doesn't know any better. So what are they going to do? They don't know the questions to ask you. They just know you look good. They want to look like you. Here's my money. Work me out. And they don't think about how their joints are deteriorating, or how they're wrecking their body over time. So I've just continued. My education has not stopped. And it just continues. It's just different subjects. So I went from when my brain was turned on, it went from biomechanics and anatomy to physiology, which took many years to really understand, because thank God for some of the computer programs that could make things different colors. Because once you start cutting into a muscle and breaking down a cell, it's all like, if you can't draw it well, it all looks the same. I'm like, I can't conceptualize this. I need color. So thank God for the Atom program that made physiology easy to understand. Plus, it's all electrical and chemical things that happen in the body. Like there's like so many transitions that happen from the first action potential, which is electrical in your brain, and then the chemical and electrical reactions that happen until you get to muscle contraction. Like there's a lot of stuff happening in the body that needs to be in place, and that's the physiology part. And so I went to physiology, and then physics. Like, hello, you have to understand physics. I won't digress, but there's funny stories about that. Okay, so physics, how many people doing things that just like you're like, okay, gravity pulls down. They don't understand physics. Okay, then we moved to biochemistry. So after I got sort of the anatomy, physiology, physics part, then you move to and physiology, then you move to biochemistry, the food. How does the food affect your body?
Wow.
And then once you get to the biochemistry, then especially for where I am right now, dealing with people mostly in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, we're looking at the hormonal and the metabolic degeneration of their body and what's going on with them hormonally and neurochemistry, right? Your neurotransmitters. So we're looking at brain chemistry as well as your hormones. And so all of these different things play a big role. And then I haven't even begun to talk about the psychology piece. There's a
Wow.
psychology piece, right? So all these different things are important when you consider your exercise, your lifestyle, your health, and they're all integrated. And unfortunately in life, because it's easier for us to understand, we compartmentalize and we think, well, I'll just do this, but you don't ever look at how it's so attached to this, and this, and how do they all affect each other. I'm about the integration of all of it and
Mm,
seeing where's the hole. What are you missing that's getting you stuck that you need to focus on that's going to help the rest of this flow better?
yeah. I You're talking my language. I love it. And I can relate, yeah. I can relate because when I was going to the gym when I was 17, 18, 19, there was no thought about anything else. It was just about looking a certain way. And I never actually ever got there because I wasn't doing all the other little things that I needed to do to help me look that certain way that I think I needed to look. So, and I didn't realize why I wasn't getting there. And of course, I wasn't doing what other people were doing to get to where they were. So I wasn't even asking, hey, your, I don't know, for lack of a better example, your bicep is like this. What are you doing differently? So I wasn't trying to learn from people that have been down that path to get some understanding from the wiser, gym junkie, so to speak, that was doing it for more years, that was doing it properly. And I wasn't prepared to do the work because it was all too hard, too much commitment. And what do you mean I've got to sleep more? And what do you mean I shouldn't, drink alcohol and do all that kind of stuff? Well, come on, that's all too hard. So as I age, and I'm 42, I understand that all the things that I've picked up over the years about health and wellness, which hasn't been a lot until around the last 4 or 5 years, has shaped this new version of me that's more supportive of me than I've ever been. I've not been this supportive of my body and my brain and my health and my well-being as much as I am now. And it's because I've done those things that I've been taught as well, which is you take the brain, if there's something wrong with it, let's put it over here, let's work out what's wrong with the brain and let's try and fix the brain. You broke your foot, well, let's take your foot and let's put it over here and let's work out what went wrong with the foot and let's see if we can fix the foot. And they weren't ever said to me, well, maybe what's happening at your foot is connected to something that's happening that you're putting in your mouth or not putting in your mouth. So I asked that because I wanted to allow people that are listening and watching to get a feel for how evolution occurs, evolution in learning, and then what it is that you've got to offer. And not only just you and me at age 40 odd, but what everyone has got to offer at age 40 odd is far more holistic than they did when they were 20, and that's because of their experiences. So experience matters. I've stuffed up my back going to the gym doing squats. I put my rotator cuff out and it was gone for 2 years and I couldn't do anything with it. So to get the right tricep size put me out of action for 2 years and I couldn't use my shoulder in anything. I couldn't use it at work. I couldn't use it at home. I couldn't use it at the gym. So it's really important for people that are listening and watching to understand that as we age and do different things and try different things and learn from different ways, we become wiser, more experienced, and just through trial and error. I think it's really important. That's why I wanted to ask, because I wanted to know how you've evolved. And it sounds like you've evolved to that point where now you are somebody that people come to for more than just, I want to go to the gym and put on muscles. What else do they come to you for?
So I actually am working with a client right now that I worked with for 3 or 4 years ago. And at the time, she just wanted to lose weight and sort of start to like exercise or get into a program. And then she went off to school and she came back and she hired me again. And I said, what's different this time? And she said, I want the whole thing. I recognize now that I have emotional eating and that my stress comes to me and I want the whole package. I want the psychological, the emotional, the physical, the whole thing.
Beautiful.
So now that's not everybody.
Yeah.
I wish it was everybody because it's much more fun that way when I can approach somebody with a holistic toolbox and say, what goodies do we have in here for you that will actually help you? I had a client this morning who he likes to joke. He lawyers me. He said about his shoulder. My shoulder is bothering me. And I go, is it like did you do something different recently? Is it bothering you? He's like, no, just that part of my shoulder that I always tell you that you haven't fixed yet. And I said, because you don't listen. So yeah, I mean, I know my limitations with different people that, I have another client who has back pain, and that back pain, I can tell you freaking 150% it's emotional, but he's a typical 60-year-old male who doesn't want to deal with his emotions.
Listen to what JJ just said, people. Back pain, which is emotional. Go figure. Right. Work it out, guys. It's possible, yeah?
Oh, yeah, it's totally emotional. But I've been working with him for 6 years. And even though he's not interested in dealing with those emotions or releasing them or processing them or doing anything that would alleviate them long term. Now, he doesn't have back pain right now, but it comes and it goes, but it comes when he gets triggered. And so he knows, like I'll say, oh, what happened? And he'll tell me rather than saying, oh, I bent over wrong. He'll say, oh, it's probably my brother or my wife. All right. So he understands. So in 6 years, I've gotten to, like, it used to drive me crazy because I look at a problem and I'm like, let's solve this puppy. Let's not wait. Why would, if you knew what the problem was and how to solve it, why wouldn't you just do it? But I understand why, because you can't teach, old dog, new tricks, all that good stuff, habit. And to be quite honest, when it comes to those kinds of big emotions that people have stuffed down for so long, the reality of it is to really deal with it, it means your life has to change. Yeah. And unless you're ready to change, and by the way, like with you and what happened to you and what's happened to people who get cancer, people that have car accidents, like if you are unwilling to take the hint along the way that life wants you to grow and move, then you will manifest some big reason that's going to say, you're not listening, so I am going to pin you on the ground until you listen. Okay? And if you still don't take the hint, that's cool. That's probably maybe you're part of your journey. But
oh my God.
But that, you're going to get back. If you're stubborn, you're going to be backed up against the wall until you listen or until you are in a state that. So I know you want to get in here. I want a quick story about a friend who had back pain, and had back pain, and he had visited me when I moved to California, and he had to sleep on like a board because his back hurt so much. In fact, he got stranded here for a couple months because he couldn't sit on a plane. Went to a doctor. They did x-rays. They said, oh, you have a pinched nerve and it's in a degenerative disc and we need to do surgery. And somebody had presented him, and I don't have it here in front of me, but I've got a copy of the book, Healing Back Pain by Dr. John Sarno. And he started to read the book, and he interpreted it as saying that it was all in his head. He was like, screw that. I have x-rays, threw the book away. So now we're getting closer to the surgery. I think the book came into his life one more time. Now he's like literally a day or two away from surgery. And the book came back into his life somehow. He read it on a train. And when he got done with it, half of his back pain was gone. Never had surgery, and now uses his back pain as his barometer for how well he's dealing with his emotions. And I had him on my podcast show, and I interviewed him years ago, really to help my family and friends who are in denial about their feelings making their back pain. I thought if they could hear it from somebody else, maybe they'd listen. So whatever, So yeah, now that doesn't mean you don't have structural issues. It doesn't mean you can't strengthen your muscles. It doesn't mean many things about your digestion, about your posture, about your, of course. But if it's a physical issue, then a physical solution helps.
Beautiful.
If it's not a physical problem, then all the physical solutions are not going to solve it long term, or it's going to manifest in another way. So if you're doing acupuncture, physical therapy, chiropractic, and it's still not better, it's probably not a physical issue.
Did you research me just before you went on?
I listened to your show. Yeah, I listened, which is why you're like, I haven't taken care of myself this good since the last 4 years. I'm like, well, let's see. Let's wonder why you end up in the hospital because of your brain. And like, really, yeah, because life, I don't know what you did before that, but I heard your show. So I know that you had life push you up against the wall and say, you better pay attention. And you listened.
You're the best. You're the best. You know exactly what happened to me. So what happened to me, for the people who haven't caught up on those episodes that are listening and watching, what happened to me was I had 3 brain hemorrhages over 3 years. But the first one happened at a time when I was working 16 hours a week. I wasn't eating properly. I was smoking. I was drinking. I wasn't sleeping enough. I wasn't dealing with my emotional challenges. I wasn't dealing with anything. I wasn't doing anything. I was just working. And I was a head case, and I used to describe myself as a head case, and I always used to do this kind of, head stuff. And then one day my head goes, stuff it. I'm not coping with this shit anymore. Here's a little bleed for you to deal with, to get out of your head, to get connected to your body. And I didn't think about it that way at the time. Of course not. Because at the time I thought, oh my God, my brain's bleeding. I've got to fix it. At the time, we went to the doctors, we did all those things. And then as I started to evolve and emerge, I started to realize that, oh my God, when I addressed that thing in therapy, this thing in my body went away. I don't know why it went away. And then I got curious, and then I started looking, etc. And then I did the same thing with food, because I realized when I was upset and causing that thing in my body and ate sugar, oh my God, the sugar and that upset and that feeling and that thought made it worse. What happens if I take all that out? And then I realized that I was in control of my own recovery. I wasn't in control of getting into my head, opening my head up and taking the blood vessel out and cauterizing. I wasn't in control of that. The doctors were in control of that. Thank God for them. I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for them. But I was in control of what happens after, and whether I end up, and I'm going to be a little bit crass, whether I end up in a few years' time either dead or somebody else being able to toilet me or wipe my bum for me. And I didn't want to be that person, and I especially didn't want to be the person who caused me to be in that situation. I would never forgive myself if I put myself in hospital and I was the reason why it happened. If God chose it, well then so be it. But this wasn't God's doing, it was my doing. So thank you so much for saying what you said, because I can relate to it. And part of why I do my podcast is the same reason you do it, so that hopefully one day one of my family members goes, I wonder what Bill talks about on that podcast. Let me tune in and listen.
Yeah. Well, yeah, good luck with that. I had a little bit of success with that, but the reality of it is the best way to help others is to just be an example of it.
Yeah, I know. So that's what I'm doing. And people are contacting me from all over the place saying they love the episodes, they can relate to that. And that's why I love doing this, is because I want to make a difference. I want to change, but I don't want to force change. I want to allow change to occur. And it sounds like you do the same thing. So if somebody comes back to you after 6 years, you might not have contacted them for X amount of years, but the work that you did with them earlier allows them to take their path, get to a point, and then if there was value in what you offered, which there obviously was, then what that allows them to do is say, you know what, I'm ready for the next step, and it's okay that it took 6 years. Sure, it should be quicker, and that would be better, but it's okay that it took 6 years. And now, JJ helped me with the next thing. And what I love about podcasts is that we get to share a piece of ourselves. We get to use it as a healing mechanism for ourselves, because that's why I use it. And we get to relate to other people, not just to ourselves anymore. Now I'm relating to everybody else. I'm making a difference. I'm helping people. And some of your episodes had really interesting headlines. And the best therapy for true healing is one of the episodes. Tell me about what is the best therapy for true healing, because that is an amazing thing.
So the type of therapy is called EMDR, eye movement desensitizing reestablishment. So quickly, I'm going to just go break down so people, whether you're watching or listening, understand when I talk about true healing. I have worked with therapists, both as my clients, as well as myself with therapists, as well as training them and learning from them. And while I'm a big fan of therapy in general, I am not a fan of talk therapy only with no other tools. The reason is because our mind is divided into two sections, conscious and subconscious. And your conscious mind, that which you can hear, that you can hear your thoughts, that's only 12%. It's not a lot. 88% is subconscious. That means the beliefs that you have learned since you were young, the things that's happened to you, your traumas, your experiences, the interpretations that you've had about the things happening in the environment around you have all fed your subconscious mind. And most of it was developed from the time you were born until you're about 10. Most of it. Now, throughout time, we have traumas that happen to us, and trauma is relative. Someone might say, well, I've never been raped, I've never been shot, I've never been attacked. Those are definitely traumas for sure. But being yelled at can be a trauma. Having starving and not having food can be a trauma. Having a car breakdown in the middle of nowhere and being scared and hearing sounds, and I mean, that's traumatic. So I don't want anyone to minimize when I talk about trauma to explain EMDR, what it does. Now, I had gotten to a point in my own understanding of psychology because, like I said, I study everything, and I am pretty smart. So I do it on myself, and I'm my guinea pig, right?
Yeah, love it.
And I got to the point where, and I had done hypnosis. I got to the point where my conscious mind could not undo certain habitual patterns, feelings, and beliefs. And what EMDR was designed to do was designed to help trauma patients, mostly people with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and mostly people coming from war or from situations where they were experiencing those kinds of very, very high traumatic events.
Wow.
So imagine somebody coming back from war and had been shooting or being shot at. Okay, so imagine in case for anyone that has never heard a gunfire or had a gun fired at you or never fired a gun, imagine a gunfire. And then coming out of being in war where it's fight or flight, you're going to die every second. And now you're trying to integrate back into life and you hear a car backfire. The backfire of that car sounds an awful lot like a gunshot. And so what's going to happen is that the trauma, your brain, the nervous system it reacts. It's in your cells. It's not conscious. You do not have any space or time to decide and interpret what that was because you're already in fight or flight mode because of the traumatic experience. But that's about how it affected your nervous system. EMDR uses eye movement as well as pulses and sounds. There's a couple different ways to do the therapy. And you do it with somebody else, by the way. You can't do it by yourself. But there's ways to do it that eye movement sort of disconnects and creates a space between the nervous system and your body's reaction so that now when you hear the backfire after having EMDR for a certain amount of time, there's a little space there where you get to interpret, oh, that was a car. Okay, body, calm down. And you don't go into that shock. Okay, so EMDR is very powerful for some of the things that we can't wrap our brains around and we are so triggered about. And triggers and while you can work them consciously, there's a physical cellular component that also needs to be addressed for you to really be able to heal it and not continue repeating it.
Just for the people that are listening and don't know what EMDR is, what do the words mean? What's the abbreviation?
Eye movement, desensitizing, reestablishment.
Nice.
So eye movement, EM, eye movement, desensitizing, reestablishment.
Yeah.
So that's what EMDR stands for. And it's part of a whole healing package. I've realized that a lot of traditional therapists, even therapists I've worked with, don't necessarily believe in true healing. They believe in learning and creating different behaviors to set yourself up to not be triggered. And that's different than healing. And so I really try to push people and I actually just finished writing my third book, like literally a week ago. So when that comes out, I talk about like the difference between what true healing means, which is you are different in the same situation. You feel differently, you react differently, and you should be at peace if you have healing in that area and be able to be an observer and not have that trigger. But a lot of therapies are about changing behavior so you avoid getting triggered, or you change behavior to get a different outcome, but you actually dance around the root cause and the issue. You don't actually ever make peace with or heal the deepest fear or issue.
Love it. And then I feel that what that encourages only by default, because I went through therapy many, many years ago when I was in my mid-20s, when one of our family members at 31 died from cancer. It was really traumatic, and I didn't realize for a number of years. So I went to therapy. What I found myself doing was then, unfortunately, being encouraged, but that wasn't the intention, to avoid a situation. So a confrontation with somebody that wasn't full on or nuts, but it was just standing my ground kind of confrontation. I would avoid that. And then that didn't work out for me because I didn't get what I wanted and I didn't express myself. I avoided the situation and the feelings of that moment, but I didn't get an outcome. I didn't get a result. And it made me avoid then, to take it to the next step, interacting with that person at all, at any level. And then it's kind of like, well, now I've removed myself. I don't have that problem anymore, but I don't interact with anyone anymore. I don't have any reason to call that person anymore because I never want to have the risk that something might be triggered where I have a confrontation and I don't want to feel those feelings. Oh God, I can't not do that because that's not a nasty person. That's just somebody who has a different point of view that I don't agree with, that I haven't learned to deal with yet.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
found myself doing that for a little while and then had to overcome all of the avoiding situations because I was avoiding everything. And then I had to get back into situations. When I got back into them, dealt with the emotion, expressed myself, did all those things. What I found was that next time, exactly what you said, in a different situation, in the same situation, my response was completely different. And that person was responding to me differently, going, that didn't go as badly as I thought it would go. So we broke the cycle of what caused each person to go down the path that they went. And now I was able to interact with people, the same people I was avoiding, in a much, much better way, in a much more calm way, in a loving way, in an understanding way, and we were able to agree to disagree.
Yeah. Well, I think it's true healing that's necessary to overcome whatever it is you're dealing with. And my latest book is about releasing weight and overcoming body shame. And what we just want to keep giving lip service to emotional stuff or to understanding, but nobody wants to do the work. And the work doesn't have to be painful. I mean, yes, you have to feel it to heal it, first of all. But besides that, it doesn't have to, it's almost like digging a weed out of a garden. There's a little bit of effort, but once you get there and you take it out, then it's not a problem anymore. Moving on to the next thing. People don't know what the freedom on the other side feels like, so they keep avoiding it and they stuff down because that's all they know. Because the fear of, oh my God, what am I going to feel? How bad is it going to be? I don't want to feel that. Let me avoid it. But then it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger for no real good reason. And so maybe you need to cry or break something. But guess what? Once you get through that, just like the storm, it passes. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm free. And I'm empty. I have emptied my tank. I don't feel so full of negative emotion that's eating away at me. And that freedom is, again, until you experience it, it's hard to sell it.
Yeah,
to people
guys,
that don't understand.
Yeah, go for it. Deal with your issues however you can. Release them and have an opportunity to experience what's on the other side, because it's way better than what's on this side. And if you've been doing it for too long, right, JJ, you get used to that as being your normal. Your normal becomes, oh my God, this state that I'm in, it's normal. That's how I've always been, or whatever. It doesn't have to be. There can be a new normal. Let's go for it. Let's see what that new normal is. Design it. Let things go and experience it. I've certainly benefited from it. And in healing from brain hemorrhages and stroke, a lot of the work that you're describing is really important for healing and recovering from brain hemorrhages, strokes, and any illness, serious life-threatening illness, really. I want to know if we can touch on a little bit, and we'll go into a couple of other things that I want to touch on in some of the other episodes and your book. I want to know, have you ever worked with people who are recovering from physical conditions that are as a result of brain or some other situation where they are not as able-bodied as they were? And how do you deal with those people differently than your technically able-bodied person?
So I have. I've worked with people who have had MS and some neurological conditions. And how I would approach that now, when I worked with some of those people, it was prior to my, I'd say, recent, in the last couple of years, extensive knowledge of neurotransmitters and biochemistry at a deeper level and a hormonal level. But what I do that a lot of people don't know or understand until I show you, I can tell you about it, but as I mentioned earlier, with physiology being a bunch of electrical and chemical transactions and exchanges that happen through the body as you think before you pick something up, starts in your brain. So, what people don't do with exercise, and it's so simple, and I'm trying to brand it, but I can't. It really has to be in person. You have to do it with me or over Skype. I can't really talk about it. It won't be as effective, but it's on. I have it on videos. You can contract your muscle with your brain, and I don't work with anyone until you because Your muscle only contracts because your brain told it to. And within each muscle, there are many groups of muscle fibers that are connected to, let's say, a receptor site that then get chemically induced by your nervous system that had to come from your impulse that happened at the brain. And there's lots of things that happen in between there. But when it comes to exercise, people don't do the brain connection. They just tell you to do a motion. So you literally are thinking about something else or having a conversation and you're moving your body around. And even with people who are like just everybody, I worked with a brand new guy yesterday. He was a delight. He was a delightful man who every time who hasn't exercised in many years. And I went through, it took me an hour to teach him 7 exercises because I thoroughly connected his brain to his muscles and only had him move from that muscle with no more 100% control and neurological connection. And he was like, I love this exercise. I love this exercise. Because he felt his body in a way that he had in many years. But I do with everybody. And so what's most important with anyone with a brain injury, but everybody, is to pause. One more story. 70-year-old client wanted to lose 50 pounds years ago, crooked, broken. Oh my gosh, a limp. I took one look at her and I'm like, oh gosh, okay, we can't even address the weight loss until we like fix the table. Like, you are a broken machine. We cannot make the machine work harder. It will keep breaking. We have to put you back together again. So I put her on the floor for the first 2 sessions and we did exercises on the floor. Now, mind you, I'm in an industry that, and I don't care, I don't listen to any of those people because half of them aren't very educated anyway, but they would say to me, oh, that's not functional training. Okay, first of all, the word function is getting something to work. It's function. So to me, if it connects your brain to your body and turns a part of your body on that hasn't worked in a long time, that's functional. Okay, yes, you're never going to lift your leg in the way that we do on the floor in life. That's not the point. So I put this woman on the floor. We did all these exercises that you'd never do in life. And in 2 sessions, she was walking better. She wasn't limping. And she walked in the door and I said, Lee, how are you feeling? And she goes, I'm walking better. I said, I see that. She's like, did I build muscle in 2 sessions? I said, no, we turned it on. We used your brain to connect to the muscles around the areas that you had trauma that shut down to protect and to heal, that never turned back on, because they don't unless you turn them on with your brain. And we turned them back on. So now you have 20 or 30% more muscle that you've always had sitting there, but now it's helping you walk. So for someone with brain, that's the first place you have to go, is to see how strong of a connection you can get from your brain to your muscle. You don't just do exercise. You don't just move around because you're already utilizing muscle fibers that are already well connected neurologically. The whole point of wanting to connect your body and strengthening that is to try to connect new muscles, try to move in a different way that your body isn't used to stimulate parts of your brain, but then to activate and turn on new muscles that are sitting there doing nothing for you, because we all have plenty of those.
Yeah, beautiful work. I love it. And for the people listening and watching, I want to share what I did to recover. And it's exactly what you said. So a lot of people who experience stroke will have left side or right side deficits and one of their hands may not move. So what I learned, which was not particularly useful for me, was that there's an exercise where therapists will get a mirror and they'll get you to move the hand that works. But your brain in the mirror, because the mirror is opposite, it sees the left hand moving and it assumes that it's made the left hand move. So the brain starts to do exactly what you said, switch on those pathways, reignite those pathways that told the muscle on the other side of the body of the arm that's not working that, hey, we moved it already because I saw it. So if I saw it, it's got to be real, which means now you need to kick in and get active and start doing stuff. So the challenge that I had was my left leg. I couldn't use that. And we couldn't get a mirror up to mimic that because it's too big, etc. It's too difficult. And before I actually had a month of rehabilitation, I had to wait 2 days to go from the hospital to the rehab hospital and to transition from surgery into a process that evaluated me to see what I was capable of doing with regards to walking, etc. So it was a 2-day evaluation. I was bored out of my brain, stuck in my bed, and I couldn't do any physical therapy. And I remembered this exercise. So what I did is I imagined myself walking. I closed my eyes, I meditated, and I imagined myself walking. And as I did that, I noticed that I was stepping a certain way, my foot was landing a certain way, I was getting certain feedback, all these things. And when it came time to walk, for people who are listening who have been through something or know somebody who's been through something serious like this, what has happened at that time is certain neurons in the brain called mirror neurons pick that up and tell the rest of the body that this actually occurred, and therefore you already have a reference point for it, so you may as well just get up and do it yourself anyway. Now, it's not 100% because you still have to strengthen the signal from the leg to the brain, but it is the beginning of that process. It's what starts off the healing and the communication. So I just love that you said what you said, because that's exactly what I did, and I didn't know that you did that work, and you didn't know that that's what I did. I love how aligned we are, and I love how you've taken your approach to healing to the floor and to the brain and to the imagination and to a communication pathway, rather than just get them on there and make them push and make them push. Because if somebody got me to stand up and I didn't know that, I would be shitting myself that I'm going to fall over, that I'm going to hurt myself, that I won't be able to do it. And I would put myself in a stressed out, sympathetic state, and I would not want to go down that path. I would be doing, the freezing up, the locking up, and I wouldn't want to comply. Whereas this way, how gentle is it to put a lady on the ground and to just get her to think about the things that she needs to think about so she can activate those muscles. It's the safest, most amazing thing. You can't get sued for that.
She was doing exercise.
Yeah.
I've helped a lot of men with knee problems, and I've helped a lot of women. Actually, one of my coaching programs before I started doing Skype training, I helped fix some knees over the phone and with my videos in terms of good form, and I'd have them go back and look at the exercises. But it's all the same process. It's all the same principle of that we all have motor patterns that we practice all the time. We've established pathways that our brain goes through, and when you get injured, those pathways shut down at those sites to protect so you can heal that tissue, but it won't turn back on, and then you compensate and create dysfunction. And whether it be an injury or someone has pain or we're looking to build muscle, I treat everybody the same way. You need to connect with your body and know exactly, and you need to be thinking. In fact, if you really train well, it's like meditation, because you're only thinking of the muscle that's pulling in the direction you want it to pull, and then moving the bones that are connected to that. That's Beautiful. It. So if you're really training well and you have your brain on, then it's a Zen state of being, because you are inside your body, you are in the moment, and there are not too many people that I trust to be having a full-on conversation and really be in their bodies at the same time. I can do it, but really, because most people don't visualize that strongly.
Yeah.
But I treat everybody the same.
Yeah, and they get distracted. A lot of people get distracted. Oh my God, the pain. Oh my God, I'm going to fall. Oh my God, I can't do it. They do all that type of stuff, right? So that's right. I love that what you said. It's like meditation, focusing on that process, on that skill. It's like a meditation. It so is. It's amazing. Your podcast is amazing. I've listened to a couple of episodes, and one of the other podcast episodes I want to talk about is the biggest addiction we have.
Technology.
Tell me, because
technology.
No one wants to hear it. No one wants to hear it because they love their technology. Technology does amazing things, and how could I be addicted to it? I can do without it.
Right. Actually, you know what? I have my new book here. Since we did that podcast, obviously I've written a book, and I have a whole bunch of addictions. So I'll go over with you what the biggest addiction we have is, but I do want to refer to my new book, because there's also soft addictions and hard addictions, and that's what people don't understand. Is that they think that an addiction is just alcohol or drugs or food, and so people don't take it seriously, and or they want to blame it on the substance. Oh, it's the substance. Oh, yeah, and then people want to congratulate everybody when they get off the substance. They're like, oh, you don't. Oh, yeah, she's an alcoholic. She's recovered. She's dry, and I'm like, so what's she doing? Like, did she heal that? Because here's the thing: while there is a chemical component to hard addiction, it's still the same. An alcoholic choosing to drink to suppress an emotion is no different than a person picking up a bag of chips or a box of cookies or a piece of chocolate. And it's no different than you on your phone all day long, not connecting with yourself or anybody else because you're too busy scouring the internet or Facebook to see what's going on because you just want to be distracted. The
Oh
biggest
my
addiction we
God.
have is that we spend more time being distracted than we do being in our bodies and being in the moment. We are
Wow.
constantly running away and filling our time. Busyness is a big addiction. Control is a huge, our control issues of controlling things. But on top of the biggest addiction at the top of the soft addictions would absolutely be technology. Absolutely. Devices, always having a device in your hand, having your face down, always trying to be connected when you're really not connected, seeing what's going on Facebook or checking your Twitter or whatever, reading the news, watching television, numbing out because it's acceptable. All the soft addictions are seen as normal behavior. Workaholism, that was yours, right?
Yeah.
Workaholism and food and control and busyness, like people that are really busy.
Yeah.
People think, "Oh, you must be really successful." No, that's called I'm running from something.
Yeah.
Okay? If you when you can't sit with yourself long enough to feel what you're feeling and allow life to just there's a doing and a being, and we're human beings, not human doings.
Mm.
So that's what ends up putting you in the ground faster or getting you into a place where you attract cancer, or you have so much toxic emotion inside of you that it turns into something physical as a disease in your body because you don't ever release it or process it. You just hold it and you're running away from it, but you're really not running away from it because it's in you. And then all of a sudden it just manifests into something, that's going to take you down. But yeah, so the biggest addiction we have on that podcast really is talking about technology. And, but since that podcast, I would add a whole bunch of them, and busyness is one of them. And I'd want people to know that heart addictions, all addictions, all of them start with the impulse to stuff and to repress emotion. Doesn't matter what it is. It all starts in the same way of I don't want to feel blank.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Beautiful. Well said. I agree with you. Before we get on to the your podcast, because I want to talk about that, why it was put together, etc. I want to ask you about one other episode, which was, which Greek goddess are you, JJ?
we did that show, and Helen started out, there's a quiz that she has, and she went through all of them. And as she's describing them, going, oh, yeah, each one. I'm like, oh, yeah, that's, and then, yeah, I kind of did that too. And then we get to the next one. And I was like, Helen, I go, this is going to sound funny, but I think I'm all of them. And she's like, well, you might be. And of course, I tested and I was like, whatever it is, like a little bit of all of them. That was me. I'm like, yeah, okay, great. I mean, I definitely have, as we evolve, you were talking about that everything that's happened to you has happened for a reason, and it's about growing and as we age, and it's really about if you take the cues and you learn your lessons. Some people live 99 years. Some people live 1 year 99 times.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's so
So
true, isn't it?
if you're taking the cue and you're expanding and you're growing and you're learning and you're taking life and you're really like riding that wave in an exciting way and not just repeating patterns and numbing to avoid thinking or feeling about anything new or different, then this stuff just sort of, you put on personalities based on what stage of life you're in and where you are. I mean, I've had the addiction of busyness because that's what I looked around at entrepreneurs and thought that's what I was supposed to do.
Yeah.
I'm supposed to be busy. It means I'm successful. If I'm not busy, I'm doing something wrong. And then I realized that was not law of attraction, and I was not leveraging the universe and the energy that I have available and access to actually create really amazing, wonderful things that have a life of their own. So once I started to really get honest about that, even though I believed this one thing, I wasn't really practicing it, then I could sit back and go, okay, so now I'm a little bit of all of them. But before I was Athena, and before that, I was all different ones because of where I was in my stage of growth and learning.
Yeah, and that's really important for people to know, is that they can grow, they can adapt, they can change, they can let go of old behaviors, they don't have to stick to them for the rest of their lives. And they can also say, you know what, that way that I was being or doing, that was not for me. Now, in this version of my life and who I've become, I can let that go. It's no big deal. I don't want to be that person anymore. It doesn't change who I am deep down in my heart. It just changes the way I act and the feedback that I get because of that. So that's all good. Your podcast, though, is called Fit to Love. So we've spoken about a lot of things, but now we're talking about fit to love. And love comes up in a couple of different things that you've done in the past, including your book. So what's fit to love about? Because What do you mean fit to love? Like, what is that?
So back when I had a manager that was like, I'd had Knack Absolute Abs. So that book is a book that, it's right here. It's a brand. It's like the Dummies and Idiot series, right? And so Knack was not my brand. I was hired to write this book. I didn't want to write this book, actually. I actually was trying to get them to do something different. So it's a really beautiful picture book that was a pain in the butt to write. I hated writing it, but it's a beautiful thing and I do love it. But it's not a book you read. It's a book you kind of like utilize as a tool. But it represents the fitness industry for me. It represents that I care what your abs look like. I don't care what your abs look like. I don't care what my abs look like sometimes, right? That's not the point. I'm not that person who's going to say you have a good body, therefore your life works and you're happy. Half the time, the more perfect you think you seem to put on in the world, I'm going to say, oh, what are you hiding? That's what happens to me now. So Fit to Love was the first version, and then the updated version is about the relationship you have with this self-care industry. It's really, there's two, I don't want to say paths, and I'm not going to say emotion, but I'm going to say there's two impulses that we act on, fear and love. We're either heading in the direction of fear or we're heading in the direction of love with everything, right? So part of that addiction conversation can be you're coming from a fear place. When you're having fear, you do the addiction, because if you were in a place of love, you wouldn't need to suppress that. So when it comes to exercise, what I bring that's different is I still want you to exercise. I still want you to be healthy and strong if you want to be healthy and strong. But I want you to come from a place because you love yourself, because that's how you attract other good things as well as results and keeping it sustainable. How many times can you walk into a gym and you feel the insecurity? You feel people who hate being there. They're only there because they think they need to look better or else no one will love them. Or they're abusing and punishing themselves for something they think they did or ate wrong. That's it. That energy in the fitness industry is what I I rebel and I repel, right? I don't like it. And I wanted to start changing it. And at the time, the manager said, well, can you write something about fitness and love? And I thought to myself, well, that's kind of my story. I mean, I met my husband. I met him. And then when he came back in and we were like, oh, I'm going to marry you. Wow. Like on our second date, that all happened when I didn't need him. And I really was probably at the place where I couldn't have been happier. I mean, I could have taken a little bit more money at the time and been like, that's nice. But I was getting all my needs met. I was having a great time. I was fulfilled. I was full. I was happy. I was peaceful. I was authentically doing and just being, and I wasn't needing, and I wasn't, and I wasn't hating myself, and I wasn't, so when it came to like singles and relationships and how your self-care plays into that, that's how Fit to Love was born. It was, you can utilize your self-care to love yourself, and you can get to the place where you will attract more when you don't need it. You're just wanting that person to make you feel loved, but you can make yourself feel loved right now. In fact, you'll attract that person a lot faster versus if you need something. So that's really how Fit to Love was born, was a manager asking about, but then I realized that was my story, because I had been looking to write that next book. Like, what's my story? Because some people, I had never lost 100 pounds. I didn't have some disease that I came back from. I'm like, it's like, what's my story?
Yeah.
And when he said that, I was like, oh, my story was, I was happy. And I was giving it all to myself. And because of that, I attracted the perfect partner for me. But it was because I was taking care of myself in a way that came from love. So that's how Fit to Love was born.
Yeah, that's nice. And at the website, fittolove.tv, you've renamed the days of the week.
So the book came first,
yeah.
And then the podcast came. Okay. Yeah. The podcast, sorry, this is the updated version. Podcast came after that. And because I'd already opened up, I took like fitness out of the fitness category, and I've now stuck it in relationships. Right. So now that I've sort of made this leap and I'm taking people with me, the next question is, well, what else is included in that? And now I've just opened up this umbrella of things I can talk about that I think are important for holistic health living and healing. And so the show isn't about being single and dating, although Sexy Saturdays is about that. But now, and because I can't fit it all in one thing, It's not just exercise, it's the whole package. It's the exercise, it's the diet and the eating, it's the medicine, alternative medicine, it's the psychology piece, it's the spirituality piece, it's the relationship piece. So I was driving after I thought I'm going to do the podcast, and I thought I'm going to do 6 days a week because I knew the different days and what they needed to be. And then I like got inspired and I pulled over and I wrote Movement Monday, Tasty Tuesday, Wellness Wednesday, Thoughtful Thursday, Freedom Friday, Sexy Saturday. And boom, there it was. And so now I have an outlet that you get to choose if what you like and don't like. If you just want to do one of them, you just listen to one day or watch one. So I got video and audio. It's a 6-day-a-week show. And it was my way of putting out all the information under one umbrella that I think are necessary for true holistic results with your body, as well as happiness, peace, and relationships in your life.
I think that the way that you've renamed the days of the week are amazing, because that takes away that Monday being the worst day of the week. It takes away Wednesday being hump day, the day that we just want to get to so that we can get to the weekend. And it renames them, it gives them more value than just a day we have to get beyond it so that we can get to the weekend. And the fact that Saturdays can be sexy, well, that's just brilliant, because we got to the end of the week, we did all the things that we had to do for everybody else, and now we can do something for us and make us feel great about ourselves and make us feel great about, going out and connecting with other people and doing whatever you want to do. But to feel sexy about it doesn't mean you have to dress in a certain way, but you just have to feel on the inside. It's about how you feel internally. And Movement Mondays is such a beautiful way to get to beyond the weekend and continue moving. So
Thanks.
Well done for doing that. I just love it, because so many people have associated so many terrible things to Monday, so many terrible things to Wednesday, and only look forward to Friday. And Friday is the only day of the week that we should be alive and awake for, because it's the end of the week.
Yep.
And I see that every day, when I go into offices and talk to people, like, how's your day? So, today's great. It's Friday. Oh my God. Come on, guys. So there's another 6 days of the week that can be great if you so choose to have the mindset that you can make them great and be great and have a great experience, rather than just the day of the week that we want to get towards, So well done for doing that. I think it's a very beautiful, creative way to change what people think. So guys, if you've enjoyed this episode of the podcast, if you've enjoyed JJ's energy and her amazing words of wisdom, do us a favor, go along and give this particular episode of the podcast a 5-star review. If you've seen it on YouTube, hit the like button. And JJ, if people want to connect with you or find out more about you, where do they go?
Well, I think the best place to go right now would be to jjflizanes.com. And the reason is because I have taken this 6-day-a-week podcast and now given each day of the week its own show. So Movement Mondays is now Smart Exercise. Tasty Tuesdays is now Easy Paleo, Gluten, and Dairy-Free Cooking. Wellness Wednesdays. So they all still exist, but this way people can really pick and choose which subject matter they like the best. If you want the whole kit and caboodle, come over to Fit to Love. If you only want cooking and learn how to make paleo, gluten, and dairy-free meals that are easy and delicious, and you want to watch videos, then you go to that show. So that this way you get to pick whichever calls to you the most. It's hilarious to me which show is doing the best on, now that I've divided them into their own single shows. It's not something I never would have guessed that is doing the best. I would have assumed this day of the week and this day of the week would have been the most popular, and I'm totally wrong. So I'm really happy I'm doing this experiment to see in real numbers, by dividing them into their own channels, which one is the most popular so far.
Can you share?
Yes, it's Freedom Fridays, which is now Spirit, Purpose, and Energy. My Spirit, Purpose, and Energy show is by far kicking butt number-wise on all the rest of the shows. Now, granted, the Smart Exercise podcast is not up yet, and then my Thoughtful Thursday show is becoming the emotional side of wellness. That is not up yet either. But the other 4 days of the week are up as their own show. And Spirit, Purpose, and Energy went up first, so I grant it that it got a head start. But it is by far the most popular show of the new branded shows.
I think you're doing great work. If you can inspire somebody spiritually to shift and change their spirit, I think then it's one of the key components to changing the rest of their well-being, their brain, their heart, their gut, their body, their joints, their eyes, everything about it. So that's why I think that people are attracted to what they're going to get the most leverage from in the shortest amount of time. They just don't know it.
That's good. I didn't think about that. It's really the spirit part is the electricity of your body. It's that impulse. It's that chi in Chinese medicine. It's the energy. It's the unmeasurable, unseeable, stuff that makes it the difference between a body that's breathing and a body that's not. If anyone's ever watched anyone pass, you see that, it's still a body, but you can tell that there's no spirit in there. And that spirit, which we can't measure, I mean, we can, but nobody really puts it in a bottle and says, here's some spirit, right? But it's like that breath of life really is, if you don't know what you believe and you don't ever question that. I mean, we all have beliefs, but when you start to really understand what your beliefs are, it gives you so much information about how you act in the world and what you attract and how you experience yourself and your feelings. So it's a good point that probably is the biggest bang for your buck in terms of changing someone's life.
Yeah, I know that when I changed my view on the woo-woo stuff, and it's not that I changed my view, it's I allowed my true view to be expressed because I suppressed it. Because if I told my mates about, how I meditate and all that kind of stuff, what's wrong with you, So I was afraid to do that because blokes, men in Australia, we're not supposed to do that. They're probably not supposed to do that on any part of the planet. But, when I started doing that, what I started noticing is that those people didn't actually become distant. They actually became closer. I was able to have more meaningful connections and communications with them, and that was able to enliven my insides, that spirit part of me, and it was able for me to express myself in a different way and cry and be afraid and be vulnerable and apologize. So I love it. We could talk forever. I could actually have you on here for the next 5 hours because I just love everything that you say and do and the way that you go about things. I'm sure by the time we get through the 5 hours, there'll be stuff I didn't like, but I'd rather not find out. Just thank you for making yourself available. I really appreciate it. And I wish you all the success. And I'm just going to continue to follow your work. And I'll encourage people who I think are going to be attracted to the way that you go about things to check it out as well.
Bill, thank you. And obviously, thank you for the work that you're doing and the journey that you share with others because you had to hit against the wall in order to get, but that's where we all are. We all have it in different ways. And so thank you for your courage to speak out about that because especially as a male, and like I said, an Australian male, that can be scary. And so congratulations and keep being a light bearer because the more that you open up and share with others, the more you give them permission to do the same. So without you, other people would never take that next step. So thank you for the work you're doing.